Happy Thanksgiving. Now I know it's 11 days away. So today is technically not Thanksgiving. It's not even Thanksgiving week. But those of you who know me know that Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday of the year. And it's not just to do with gluttony and tryptophan comas and all that goes along with the meal of Thanksgiving. I love the traditions of Thanksgiving. My entire life, Thanksgiving has been one of those hallmark holidays. For over a decade, my family would celebrate Thanksgiving at our little church in Richardson, Texas, together. We would invite folks from our church who basically had no family in town, single moms who just were too busy to provide a big Thanksgiving dinner for their families. And we would have everybody at the church. In fact, there were Thanksgivings when we had 30 and 40 people together with our family for Thanksgiving. And we would come down on Wednesdays before Thanksgiving, and we literally put up tents in the auditorium. And my kids grew up sleeping overnight Wednesday nights for Thanksgiving week and for the celebration, and I would build these little living areas. We'd drag sofas from all over the church and build a dining table, and then we played this massive flag football game at the junior high next to our church. It was epic. The whole thing was brilliant. Loved Thanksgiving. I mean, and another thing I like about Thanksgiving is it's so literal. I mean, Thanksgiving is obvious. Thanksgiving is so pedantic. In case you're confused about what is the holiday of Thanksgiving about, it's about giving thanks. It's about Thanksgiving. So it's straightforward. There's no confusion about it. I understand that for some folks, and perhaps for more than usual, Thanksgiving is not exactly a time of celebration, and it's because of the empty chair. It's because of the people who are not there. It's because of the things that we have lost or the difficulties that we are facing. And I know in the holiday times between Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, the intensity of that loss, of that struggle, of that pain is amplified. But I really believe that if there was ever a year, if there was ever a time when we all needed to take a breath, when we needed to step back and we needed to express gratitude and count our blessings, it's this year. Selfishly, I think we all need a moment to look around and say, we're going to be okay. We're going to be all right. And to look at all of the beauty and the blessings around us of all years. This is the year that Thanksgiving really matters. Over the last few weeks, we've been having a conversation about considering that selfishness is a good thing. And we've been talking about this idea that the most selfish thing that we can do is to be generous. That if we are generous with one another, that actually is a blessing to us. It is selfish to be generous. And today, I want to explore the idea, not just that generosity is selfish, but so is gratitude. See, that's my prayer today. My prayer today is that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart would be pleasing in God's sight, that he would use his word, spoken by this servant, anointed by his Spirit, to encourage us, to remind us of the blessings in our life, and to lift our spirits together, and that we might not just know the gift of God, but that we might show it and share it. Last Sunday, we went to brunch after church, and I like doing that, and we gather our family. My 3 daughters and their husbands live here in town, and so we met at an outdoor restaurant over in East Austin last Sunday, and we got together, and it was good to see them, and my daughters were sharing that they had watched the message. They had watched the Resonate service online, and they were commenting about it. And my oldest daughter said to me, she said, "Dad, you you really don't like asking people for money, do you? And you have to realize, you have to have some empathy for these three young women, because they've been listening to me their whole life. And it's a blessing for me to know that they still listen once in a while. It's one of those joys I have as a father and as a pastor, that this matters to my kids. And my daughter said, yeah, it seems really hard for you to ask for money. And she knows me. And my kids have never had a problem telling me what they think. Not since the moment they were born. They were letting me know that this is how they viewed the world. And so I wasn't surprised that she said that. And I wasn't surprised because she was right. It's one of those things that about this job, about my role, that I really don't enjoy. I just have that stereotype in my head. You know, the minister, the preacher, the televangelist who's always, appealing, always has their hand out. And that's so uncomfortable for me that when I need to do it, when I need to ask for you to reach out and to care for the needs in our community and to keep our lights on, frankly, I get a little uncomfortable with it. But my daughter picked up on that. And I said, yeah, you're right, sweetheart. It's awkward for me. I don't know if it was awkward for the Apostle Paul or not. I don't know. He doesn't seem to have a problem with it. In fact, we have spent the last couple of weeks looking at a note that he wrote to us. I like to say that he wrote us a note. It's really two letters that are preserved for us in the Bible. They're addressed to the church in Corinth. But the church in Corinth is so much like Riverbend, I call them First and Second Riverbendians. And there's 2 chapters in Paul's second letter to us in 2 Corinthians 8 and 9, where he really is talking about generosity. He's talking about their giving. In fact, at the very end, the last part of this instruction, this sort of apostolic thank you note, this is exactly how the Apostle Paul ends his instruction and his affirmation of their generosity. He says, this service that you perform is not only supplying the needs of the Lord's people, but is also overflowing in many expressions of thanks to God. Because of the service by which you have proved yourselves, others will praise God for the obedience that accompanies your confession of the gospel of Christ, and for your generosity in sharing with them and with everyone else. And in their prayers for you, their hearts will go out because of the surpassing grace God has given you. Thanks be to God for this indescribable gift. He concludes his instruction about the selfishness of generosity with a reminder of the selfishness of gratitude. That when you are generous, other people will be thankful. They'll be thankful for you. And when we are thankful, that provokes generosity in others, and it provides an affirmation and prayers and support, and people will think well of you, and it's very self-serving. But it's the very last thing that he says. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 15, where he simply says this: thanks be to God for his indescribable gift. In Paul's original language, it says, charis to theo, epi te anik diegeto, auto doria. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift. The first phrase, charis to theo, thanks be to God, is unusual because the first word there is the word charis, and we translate it correctly, thanks. Thanks to God, gratitude to God. But that's not the most common Greek word for thank you. The most common Greek word, which is used almost universally in the Greek language, is the word Eucharistia. Eucharistia or Eucharisteo, which means to give thanks. You may have heard that word before because it's translated or transliterated into English as the liturgical church word for communion, the Eucharist. It means literally, it's the Greek word for giving thanks. But the Apostle Paul doesn't use that word there. He uses the word charis to theo, thanks be to God. And it's unusual because the word charis doesn't necessarily mean gratitude. It means grace. It is the word that is translated most times to mean grace, the grace of God, not thanks to God. It is this idea that grace is this unmerited favor, this undeserved favor. Eucharisteo is a gratitude because someone does something for you, because we receive something. It's like an obligation. It's like a cause and effect. But Paul is saying there's something else at the core of gratitude, and it is grace. It is the charis of God. See, this is the cornerstone of Paul's theology. The cornerstone of Paul's theology is that he is introducing into the world, he is saying that in the coming of Christ, in the gospel of Jesus, the world was introduced to a new operating system. Up until the time of Christ, the world had operated since its formation, since the creation, since the beginning of time. The world has operated under an operating system of cause and effect. This is how the universe works. It is the law of action and reaction. That if you do something, something else will happen. That the universe is calculated and measured by that. That is the standard operating system. But the Apostle Paul is introducing something new. In the coming of Christ, he said, there's a new operating system, and it's the operating system of grace. And grace doesn't operate on a cause and effect relationship. Grace operates on a relationship that basically says that you cannot outlove God. God will love you no matter what. And it's this bilateral affection. It's this bilateral gratitude that connects gratitude and grace because of the grace of God. Because we love God not because of what God does, but we love God simply because God is reciprocated in the idea of grace that God loves us not because of what we do, not if or when or so that or for this reason. God loves us simply because we are. God is thankful for you. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever considered that God is thankful for our life, for your life, for my life? That the course of the narrative of the universe is written through us. And God is grateful for that. In the same way that we are grateful for who God is, God is grateful to us simply because we are. Now, I know you may be sitting at home right now and you're sitting on your sofa and your kids are crawling on your lap and you're saying, whoa, slow your roll there, Dave. Hold on, I haven't had enough coffee to think about this morning. I'm having a hard time understanding. You're talking about operating systems and bilateral gratitude. I can't get my head around that. Just simplify it for me. Well, it's about grace. It all begins with grace. But there's a problem with that. You see, the problem is that that's who we are. We are a community of grace. It is our distinctive. It is our label. If you ask people who have been around Riverbend any length of time, they will say, what's the distinctive of Riverbend? What's Riverbend about? And if they know what they're talking about, they'll say, Riverbend is all about grace. Riverbend is a grace church. And that's a beautifully ambiguous thing because it becomes a placeholder for, okay, what does that mean? And we're free to insert our definitions of what grace is. Grace gives us that kind of latitude. But I want to suggest that grace is a product of our gratitude. That what Riverbend is really all about is this entanglement between grace and gratitude and generosity. That what we are about is this idea that we are thankful because we have been loved by God. And we show that thankfulness by our generosity. And that generosity then points back to the grace of God. And so you want to know, what does the grace mean? What does grace mean? It means we are a gratefully generous people. Because that's what grace looks like. Grace looks exactly like gratitude and generosity. Not so that, not for the purpose of, not even because of, but simply as an expression of the realization of the grace of God. That's why he says, charis to Theo there. That's why he says, thanks be to God. He's not just saying thanks. He's saying the grace of God is at the centerpiece of who we are. But that last phrase, the last phrase where it says, thanks be to God for his indescribable gift, epite onik de geto autodoria. Autodoria is the word for his gift. And the case of the nouns there can be translated the gift from God, or it can also be the gift of God. Thanks be to God for the gift of himself. Thanks be to God for the gift of God, for the gift of the grace of God. Autodoria. But it's the next word that's profound. It's onik diegeto. And onik diegeto is a word that Paul made up. He does it all the time, but it's a mashup. It's got a prefix. The prefix is onik. And onik in the Greek language is the same thing that we use when we say in or im or un. Like you can have something that is speakable and you put onik in front of it and it's unspeakable. You have something that's credible, you put onik in front of it and it's incredible. It's believable, it's unbelievable. It's possible, no, it's impossible. It's credible, no, it's incredible. That's what onik means. But it's the next word, diegeto. Diegeto is the word for a story. And literally what this means is it's an impossible story. Thanks be to God for the impossible story of himself, of his grace. Thanks be to God for the narrative that no words can explain. It is absolutely, positively beyond description. You can think of every analogy and every metaphor and every narrative and every story that you could imagine, and you could never fully describe the beauty and the majesty and the random, reckless excessiveness of God's grace. You ever see the Northern Lights? Did any of you ever see the Northern Lights? Have you ever seen them in person? Not photographs, not on TV, like for real. It was about 20 years ago. I was teaching on a college retreat up in northern Minnesota at the end of February, which I do not recommend. But I was up there, and I was up there with a couple hundred college students, and one night I was in my room, and somebody knocked on the door, and they said, Dr. Haney, you gotta come see this. And so they took me outside, and I walked outside, and the sky was magnificent. There were these ribbons of light, and they were just there. They were just hanging there in the sky, and they were moving, and they were shifting, and they were changing colors from green to yellow to blue to kind of a pink, and back and forth, and they moved, and it was the most fantastic thing you could imagine, because it was just there. And I stood out there for at least 2 hours, and it was 10 below zero. And I stood there amazed at how overwhelmingly beautiful and how incredibly random this was. That this was just there. It was like wasted on Eskimos and polar bears. It was just put up because it could. It wasn't there to entertain. It wasn't there to to display some product. It was just reckless, excessive beauty. You ever wonder how many sunsets take place around the world every day, where the sky turns from an azure blue to a crimson and a yellow and an orange, and the sun sets and casts this mirror finish across a lake or a sea or a mountain, and no one ever sees it. It goes to waste. How many mountain fields are filled with flowers that grow and they bloom and they're magnificent in their intricacy and the mosaic of colors, and they prosper throughout the spring and the summer, and then they fade and they die in the fall, and no human being has ever seen them. No one has gazed on them. They're just wasted. They're just thrown out there, just beauty and excessively massive, gorgeous, wasted beauty. This is Anak Diegeto. This is what Anak Diegeto means. It's this reckless, incredibly mind-blowing excess of love and affection and loyalty and faithfulness and undeserved favor that we call grace. Let me put it another way. Think of it this way. How many of us had a choice? How much of our life do we really choose? Now, we know we didn't choose who our parents would be. We didn't get a vote on that one. We didn't get a choice on where we were born or when we were born. We didn't get a choice in basic physical attributes. We didn't get a choice about our skin color or our eye color or our hair color. You think I had a choice to wind up looking like this? I didn't get a choice. I didn't get a choice to be left-handed. I just was. From the very beginning, I was an outcast. I was a rebel because I was a southpaw. Because I was a lefty, because I was the guy who everybody picked last because we didn't have a mitt for you. You go into a sporting goods store and there's 1,000 baseball gloves for right-handed people and there's like 2 for left-handed people, and they're just first baseman's mitts because somebody said that's where lefties go. Dude, heaven forbid you should try to find a left-handed catcher's mitt. I think there's only an old woman in Guatemala that hand sews 2 of them a year because there's no such thing as a left-handed catcher. I didn't choose that. I didn't choose to be left-handed. How much of our life do we actually choose? I mean, we like to think that we have control. We like to think that we have a choice, but most of our life is given to us. And the only choice we have is what are we going to do with it? You see, that is a choice. We do have a choice. You see, I think we have a choice to use the old operating system. And the old operating system says we are the reason that good things happen or bad things happen. It's a cause and effect play. The old operating system says if you have a good life, it's because you did good things. If you have a bad life, it's because you did bad things. If you want God to love you, you have to do good things. If you do the bad things, then God will not love you. That's the old operating system. And what that produces is self-absorption and self-loathing and self-pity. Because we don't have a choice about the things that really matter. But there's a new operating system, and we can choose to operate in grace. It is a new operating system, and that new operating system is filled with gratitude and generosity because we see every day, every hour, every moment, every breath as a gift, as an opportunity, as a blessing. We don't get run over by the freight train of feeling sorry for ourselves because of all of the struggles and all of the difficulties and all of the things that we didn't choose. But we have a choice to operate in a new operating system that celebrates the grace of God and expresses itself in our gratitude and our generosity. I think ever since the beginning of time, since the first Homo sapiens were able to have some sentient thoughts, and they looked up in the sky, and perhaps they saw the northern lights, or they saw the Milky Way, and they began to say, well, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And throughout human history, people have wrestled with that idea of what is my significance? What is the meaning of my life? Why does my life even matter in the course of human history? What difference does it make that I was even here? And in that wrestling, people have constructed every religious system in history. Because religion is simply a mechanism. It is simply a group idea of, okay, how do we come to terms with our own existence? The reason for being, what is the design and what is our place in it? And every religious system, from the animism of people that worship nature and trees and the sun, to the worship of science and empirical thought, and whether it's Mormonism or Hinduism or Buddhism or Islam or Christianity, all of them are wrestling with this idea of how do I find my place? You want to fall down a black hole of philosophical circular thinking, do some study on modern theories of self. I mean, you go back to Plato, or from Plato to Carl Jung, from Karl Marx to Sigmund Freud, you people have been wrestling with, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is my place in this universe? But 2,000 years ago, a man named Jesus, and Jesus of Nazareth, came onto the earth, and he said, I will explain to you your purpose. I will tell you why you are here. You are here because God wants you here, and God is thankful that you are here. And God has put you here in his grace. And the Apostle Paul started to construct this new identity. It's our true self that is surrounded by the grace of God and the gratitude that produces and the generosity that expresses. That is our true identity. That is our true self. It is a new operating system. It's what I mean when I say that being selfish is a good thing. When I look at my life and I see every day as a gift, and I see every breath as a blessing, and I have opportunities to be grateful and to be generous because of the grace of God. This is what it means to be selfish. My daughter was right, last Sunday when she said, Dad, you really don't like asking people for money. She's right. I feel awkward about it, but I don't apologize for it because I believe in this place. I believe in the message of grace. I believe in a community of grace. And I believe that given the events of 2020 and the path that our society has been on and the things that I am seeing going on in our culture, I believe in this place all the more because there is a day coming, and it's not too far away, when people will say, I'm tired of being alone. This isolation was not how I was supposed to live, and I need community. And I don't just need any community. I need a community that values me, a community that exudes that kind of grace that this place does. So I don't have any problem saying, help us keep the lights on. Help us be in a position for when we are able to regather. And when people say, I want to find my way to a community like that, where I matter, where we do things that matter, where our doors are open, where we are available. And I may have a problem asking you to support that financially. I don't have a problem thanking you for it. I will unapologetically express my thanks to so many of you. I mean, we have had literally countless people make financial contributions to Riverbend over the last 9 months who have never been on this campus simply because they've watched us online. Because in their isolation, they were searching, and I believe God led them to this place. And they've shared that blessing financially with us. And there are hundreds and hundreds of volunteers who have given thousands and thousands of hours to express that grace in our community throughout these months. And I am truly, incredibly thankful. I'm thankful for all of you who are safely and carefully coming here to be together on Sunday morning, just to be in the room together, because that matters. And I'm grateful for that. Thank you for that. I don't have a problem saying thank you. It's because Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. Thanksgiving is awesome. And it's not just the traditions, and it's not just the food, and it's not just the expressions. It's what it represents. It's a reminder to us to count our blessings. And if there was ever a time when we needed that, it's now. It's when we feel like we are caught up in the rip current of events that we have no voice in. Thanksgiving is a reminder that we do matter, and that every day, every hour, every minute, every moment, every breath is a gift that we can be thankful for and generous with. In 11 days, Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday. But maybe Thanksgiving isn't a day. It certainly shouldn't be one day a year. Maybe what we need to be about is the grace and the gratitude and the generosity, not just as a holiday, but as every day, all day. Happy Thanksgiving.